Hey everyone, it's the Power Hour here, coming at you with a little bit of a different subject matter than normal. We're going to start a series called Fringe Fridays. We're going to go over some interesting archetypes that have a lot of pieces available to them that may not be looked at as heavily as some of the other archetypes. We have things like Amber Steel songs, or Red Purple Control, or Ruby Sapphire Control. You name it, there's several archetypes that are favored or more fleshed out than a lot of other ones. But I wanted to take the opportunity to look at some of these more hidden archetypes and how they can work with the cards that we have currently available in set 6. So, starting off currently, we have blue green ink effects. The basis behind this deck is you want to utilize a lot of your resources in order to ink to gain additional advantage from your characters. As many of you know, Chicha, when you ink your second card per turn, allows you to draw an additional card. So this is one huge way to maintain card advantage while throwing more resources into your inkwell. Additionally, there's Bellwether from set 6. During your turn, whenever a card is put into your inkwell, chosen opposing character gains Reckless during their next turn. This deck is trying to put 2, 3, or more cards into the inkwell on a turn. Sounds kind of silly, but it's honestly very feasible, especially with some of the packages that's included. Obviously, you have Belle, strange but special. Once you get to 10, she quests for 5. Very strong. Currently, only have one copy in this list just because I'm not sold on how good it is. Obviously, this seems like it would be the best place for it, considering you want to try to get as much ink into your inkwell as fast as possible. But at the same time, I'm not sure exactly how it fits the strategy with some of the other things. We're trying Grandma Tala, Keeper of Ancient Stories. A little bit of card selection goes a long way. Not only has this been good in Ruby Sapphire, I think it's also be good in Emerald Sapphire as well. Hiram, best Sapphire draw engine, right? So utilizing that is very good, along with popsicles, hidden ink casters, etc. This Basil from set 6, I'm a huge fan, and I was having a discussion with some people at the event over the weekend about how this could be kind of busted. You notice that he's looking into a mirror currently. Well, he does have a discard effect. There is an item called Prince John's Mirror. There is a song called Friend Like Me where you put 3 cards into your inkwell exerted, but you could sing that song with this Basil and and then pay to have your opponent discard 3 cards. It's pretty interesting concept that this might be the best. I shouldn't say best version. This is probably the most aggressive discard deck in the format, where it's really trying to utilize that in order to win the game. For when you don't have your discard effects, Clarabelle should be able to play Clarabelle fairly easily. I mean, if you have a hand that lacks discard, but then you slam a Clarabelle on, say, 5, and then you draw 4 or 5 cards, you get back in the game pretty quickly. Grandma Tala, Spirit of the Ocean. This is another one that I've been kind of big on. I enjoy alongside Basil. The fact that this gains you a lore whenever a card is put in your inkwell, and you're essentially trying to force more cards into your inkwell than any other deck. It just seems like this is the perfect home for this Grandma Tala. A couple Hades Infernal Schemers. Once again, you're accelerating, so playing this character is fairly easy. As well as, it takes no prisoners when it comes to what it removes outside of a character having a ward. It can answer anything. Then finally, a couple copies of Tamatoa. Since you are playing an item package, it goes without saying that Tamatoa is really good. If you're playing a Hiram, you're probably playing a Tamatoa, right? 4 copies of Sail the Azure Sea. One thing you may notice if you look at the deck is it's kind of heavy on inkables at 18. However, there is an item that kind of helps us get around this effect. 3 copies of How Far I'll Go. 4 copies of Friend Like Me. I was a huge fan of this song when I saw it spoiled. There had to be some way to make it reasonable. It's a rare Singer 5, and then each player puts the top 3 cards of their deck to their inkwell face down. To me, I was like, oh, cool. I always wanted to try an Amber Sapphire build with this that accelerated into the Grandma Talas. Utilize this and one jumps and things like that. But now that we have Tipo and Pleculi and a couple other cards like that, it almost feels like the Amber Sapphire deck is better in the Mufasa build, kind of like the old school DeCandio list from the TCG Player Invitational, where he was trying to accelerate up into the Hades loops, the big Hades to banish everything your opponent plays on board, the Carefree Surfers, just to constantly force your opponent to have answers for large characters. And then a few copies of Under the Sea. This likely isn't going to make the cut down the road. It just feels like something that you want to have in the deck, being that you don't do a lot of challenging very well. You're mostly trying to find card advantage and utilizing the inkwell, and a lot of your characters just don't really do combat. 1/2s, 2/1s, 2/3s, 2/4s, 1/6s. You're really looking at your Grandma Tala, your Basil, your Clarabelles as being your real beaters when it comes to combat. So you have to have a way to answer the early game. For the item package, we have 4 popsicles. I mean, it goes without saying, if we're playing Hiram package in Sapphire, you're playing popsicles, right? 3 copies of Hidden Inkcaster. So we are willing to run a higher number of uninkables because this, in conjunction with Sail, means you can ink anything. That's the same thing with Bell, because all cards in your hand count as having the inkable ability. They all can be placed into the inkwell as for those cards' effects. 3 copies of Prince John's Mirror. This is another one of those cards that is interesting. I mean, it goes without saying that if your opponent has to go down to 3 cards in hand, you can make them discard their hand with Friend Like Me. So there's just niche little interactions in the items that you can utilize alongside some of the songs and the characters. Prince John is nice because it helps keep your opponent at a maximum level of advantage in their hand, right? So say your red-purple opponent is going off with genies and rabbits, and they've got 6 or 7 cards in their hand every turn. Well, the mirror says, hey, guess what? It's the end of your turn. You didn't have an answer for this. Go down to 3 cards. And then that leads into Basil being able to be like, okay, we'll just remove the rest of the cards in your hand and then try to catch back up. A couple copies of Fishbone Quill. This card is, once again, another accelerant. It's an item for Hiram. The more whole new worlds you see in the game, or in the format, I should say, the better this is. This is one thing I think Ruby Sapphire needs to make sure they're kind of wary of too, moving forward with the whole new worlds popping up currently. And then a couple copies of Lucky Dime. I would say we would be amiss if we weren't running Lucky Dime alongside Tamatoa and Bell. I mean, anytime that you can gain 5 or more lore off of an activation of Lucky Dime is probably reasonable to be playing that card. The big things about this deck, obviously it does not challenge well currently in this iteration. So you either have to get out ahead extremely well, or you're probably going to stumble and not be able to succeed. So mulliganing, make sure you're mulliganing for accelerants, Sail, Tipo, How Far I'll Go. Bellwether is a good card to have in your opener to interact with your opponents, so you can give them Reckless so you can keep them from questing, as well as possibly getting to the Hiram package. Another thing too with this list, if you notice, looking at the curve, there are no 5-drops. I would be wrong to say that's okay. I think there has to be some sort of balance there, though I think we do fill the curve fairly well. 5 and 6 are our empty spots, so maybe we need to shave a Tamatoa in order to add in up here, as well as maybe looking at shaving the Bell and adding maybe Lucifer or something like that in order to have some more interaction with our opponent. finally, this is a Sapphire deck that doesn't have any sort of board control, like outside of the Under the Seas, and I don't particularly think Under the Sea is the best version of board control in a deck like this. You can't sing it on. Excuse me. You can't sing it on 4 like you can in Amber Emerald. So doing that and looking at that, that might be the biggest reason that this deck doesn't see play. You know, you don't have that agency to take care of a large board state in a lot of cases. Outside of that, that's all I have on this Fringe Friday. I'm going to be looking forward to doing several interesting little concepts. I know a lot of people have looked into a peddler deck that I've been trying to create for this format as well. That'll probably be our next one. And then I'll be looking for suggestions moving from there. If you've got a super rare or a legendary you feel is underplayed or undervalued, feel more than welcome to comment underneath, and we could take a look at it for a future Fringe Friday. With that all said, thank you guys for watching today. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next video. Peace.